as you saw in the little short I did yesterday that I was updating you about the week, this week we're going to be out telling stories all week long. Today is going to be the first one of that. Today I have traveled just a little ways down south across the state line into Florida. I'm in an old Civil War town, an old rail town from the Civil War. Today I have a really neat story that I'm going to tell you from right here in Chipley, Florida. It's very interesting. At least I find it to be interesting anyways. But this is the first day of this week-long adventure telling stories. As I said before the intro, today we are in Chipley, Florida. Chipley is an old Civil War town. It's been here for ages. That you can see the railroad track running right through the center of its downtown. It was an old train town from the Civil War. You can even see it in their architecture. Some of these buildings have been here for a long time. I mean, obviously it's been renovated, but you can still see how old this town is in its design. Take for instance this building here. Look at that fireplace there on the inside. Looks like it used to be an old bank or something, and the tellers would have sat behind this door here. The outside of the building looks fairly decent. It almost looks like it caught fire at some point in time. Get the arch up the top, the decorative top there on that one, and the old steel chains holding this awning up above all of these. It says the Dunn Building, and then below it says Tom Watts Building 1916. These buildings here, the Washington County News and the one beside it, are said to be the most haunted here in the town. They hear stuff dragging, have people brush up against them all times of the day and night. If you look at places like Gettysburg, you know, Civil War towns are always said to have the most paranormal activity going on in them. So many people died during the Civil War, and those souls, I guess, are trapped here on Earth. You can see how the town started here, and in modern days it's expanded out this direction and out this way. Actually, every time I go to Panama City, I drive right through Chipley because it's actually halfway between Dothan and Panama City. And it wasn't until recently that I learned of the history of the town that I had been driving through all this time. Of course, we are in Florida. We're about half an hour from the beach, so you have to have your palm trees. Here's a mural. It says welcome to Chipley up there. This mural is pretty old. It's like falling off and the paint's chipping. It says Valencia Jewelers over here, but it's a mural of Chipley and their train station. Do you know what? That train station is still standing. Here is the Chipley train tracks and the old Chipley train station. It says it's an Amtrak museum. Bill Lee Station, it says. In these parts, we don't really have passenger trains anymore. We don't really have passenger trains anymore down here. You know, in some cities, probably larger cities, you can still find passenger trains, but down here in the south, not really. You can only, I mean, trains still run, obviously, but just carrying cargo goods to other places, as trains can carry massive loads. And here's a statue commemorating William Dudley Chipley, which the town is named after. He was the builder of the Pensacola and Atlantic Railroad, which they actually changed the city name to honor him. Prior to them changing the name to Chipley, I believe it was called Orange. That's a little fun fact. They've built a nice little gazebo out here for some recreation. And they even took an old caboose they had laying around from back in the day and set it up out here on display. Most of the time you see it sitting on tracks, they just have it sitting in the dirt. Look at that. Wow. Look at the windshield wipers on the windows here. I guess so passengers could see out. It even has the seats still in it. I can see them from down here. Oh, they have mannequins up on the other side. Here's some passenger seats over here to the right. Interesting. Probably would have freaked me out if I would have came to this side first. Looked in and bam, there's a guy standing there. There he is. I'm not here today to focus on downtown Chipley. There's one story that's individual that stood out to me that I thought was really interesting that I want to tell. That brings us to Glenwood Cemetery here in Chipley, Florida for the story today. If you look around the cemetery, you see all the grave sites, their headstones, all in different shapes and colors and sizes. And one grave stands out. This one right here, sticking up above the ground. This is the grave of Miss Mary J. Nepper. She was born January the 12th of 1868. Believe it or not, Miss Nepper died twice. In the late 1800s, they thought, for whatever reason, she had died. So they brought her here to Glenwood Cemetery, and she didn't want to be buried underground. She wanted to be buried above ground. Well, she died laying in her bed, so her family had her buried above ground and had her plot made to look like a bed. You see, it's like the sheet folded over here, and where her name is there is the pillow. Now, obviously you can see it says 1911 here, not late 1800s, but we'll get into that in a minute. So it looks like her bed, with the sheet folded down in the pillow and the 4 balls on the end to make up the 4 posts. Just after she was laid to rest here in the late 1800s, like immediately after. We're talking about only a day or two. Grave robbers come here to Glenwood Cemetery, because back in those days, back in the late 1800s, you were buried with your valuables. So if you had a lot of jewelry, a lot of gold, stuff like that, it was buried with you. So grave robbers seen this and thought it was unusual and said, man, it's built up like that. She must have so much in there. So they come with their sledgehammers and they busted open her casket. To their surprise, Miss Mary J. Nepper sat up. She sat up. She was still alive. She had been buried alive inside of this concrete tomb. The funny thing is, had those grave robbers not come, she would have died in there with no one ever knowing. Shortly thereafter, because there were a lot of people who I guess they thought were dead and actually weren't, they developed the system where they would bring you out here and bury you, and they would actually tie a rope around your hand which come up above ground to a bell. And if you weren't dead and you moved around, then the bell would ring, and they had a person that worked the grounds all night long who, if they heard the bell, they had to come over and dig you up right quick. And in case you didn't know, that's where the term graveyard shift come from. Yes, another fun fact in this episode. So she set up, freaked the grave robbers out. They probably never robbed another grave again ever in their lives. Miss Mary J. Nepper lived an additional 35 years after that. And not only that, she had 3 more children after being buried alive, right here. She would then go on to pass away again in 1911, for real this time, and was put right back in the same spot. They remade her final resting place to look exactly like it did the first time. And this is where her mortal body now sits for all eternity. Either rate, it's a very interesting story, how she was buried alive, come back to life, lived 35 years, had 3 more children, and now she sits. There have not been, at least as far as anyone knows, there's not been any more grave robbery attempts on her grave the second go around. That is going to do it from here in Chipley, Florida. Again, this week is, you know, obviously we took several days off. We're just taking it easy. I have quite a few stories I'm telling this week from here around the local area. Similar to this one. This was a light story, not a big murder mystery, but a very interesting story nonetheless. This is the only one I have about being buried alive and coming back to life. But so we'll be telling stories all this week as we prepare to catch a plane and take our big journey coming up on us very fast. I would like to thank all of you for watching. It is so much appreciated. You just don't know. Thank you all so much. I will see you again tomorrow. I hope you have a great day. You know, these headstones, these tombstones right here, look exactly like the one from Back to the Future Part 3. They look exactly like it. That's crazy.